How you doing, guys? It's Joe Vizio here. I'm on my way to work. Another day, another $50. And figured I would tell a story. I want to get into a little story that, I think I've told parts of here and there, but I don't think I've ever just sat down in front of the camera and told the whole story. And if I did, like I said, I don't think I did, but I would put pieces together and stuff like that. I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but I don't know how many are going back and watching old videos and stuff like that anyway. It's kind of like, putting up a picture on the internet, a meme, and you write your own caption with the meme. Most of the time people don't pay attention to the caption, they just look at the picture. So, here we go. This will probably be a little bit of a hard one to tell. I probably got about a 30-minute ride to work. So buckle up, because if you're in it, this one might get a little bit lengthy. And here we go. I was living in Kentucky, and I had taken this excursion to Kentucky and Tennessee, where I lived there for a little while, pretty much to get away from my father. It was one of the best things I've ever done, because I really got to go out and see. And on a side note, my daughter, my oldest daughter, has kind of done the same thing. I don't think she's done it to get away from her parents. I know she don't really have that good of a relationship with her mother, but, she went out there with her friends, and I don't want to say where she went, but she's on the other side of the country from me. I'm in Florida. And she's living her life. And when she said this to me, she 100% had my support. Although I really didn't want her moving that far away from me, especially as, within the past few years, we really established a good relationship with each other. She's got to get out and she's got to live. She's got to do her thing. And she's in an area that's really good for one of her passions, which is the horses. And so I kind of, in some ways did the same thing, but I more or less needed to get away from my father. Which my father was not happy about. So, I was up there probably about 5 years total, between Tennessee and Kentucky, and trying to find myself. And, once I got into Kentucky, which is where I spent the bulk of the time, I really started establishing myself. I was working as a general manager for, a big cleaning company, none of these conglomerates or anything, but, it was a guy kind of like myself that, really had his shit together, and, didn't have as much competition up there, and, a lot of the corporate conglomerates had not yet dug their claws in. So it was a totally different business. I'd established myself pretty good, except for in the lines of like a domestic relationship. I was in a pretty rocky, bad relationship, which is kind of how I ended up there in the first place. I kind of followed a woman that I had met. And at that time, before I went there, life had just kind of crashed for me. 9/11 happened. My business that I had established started crumbling. Tourists weren't coming to Florida anymore. Nobody was flying. My business was based in restaurant cleaning. So once the restaurants started slowing down, the cleaning guy's a luxury. So I started getting the axe in a lot of places, and after a time, and again, I did a video on this called "The Somebody That Saved My Life." During the time of that video, once I hit my stride, life was pretty good for me. I was making my own breaks and establishing myself, and I had gotten married, and that's when my son was born, and then all in one fell swoop, my wife was having an affair. There was my wife's sister was questioning whether or not my son was actually mine. It's my ex-wife, not my current wife. I lost my business. I lost my house. I had that proverbial carpet just kind of yanked right out from under me. So, long story short, I ended up in Kentucky to kind of reestablish myself and get a new outlook on life. So, at the end of that time, like I said, it was like a year in Tennessee, probably 4 years in Kentucky. At the end of that 4th year is when I got a phone call from my father. And I think he was, trying to look to reestablish a relationship. And, we weren't no contact. We talked on the phone, which I thought was the best time that I ever had with my father, getting along with him, because whenever I got tired of his shit, it was, okay, click, and he was gone. So I had, and let me getting ahead of myself, let's rewind probably about 6 months. About 6 months prior to the phone call from my father that I'm about to explain, me and my girlfriend up there had pretty much hit our limits with each other. She had a good bit of age over me. And, and I think some of our differences and things like that were starting to show. And long story short, I needed to get out of my situation. But I was kind of in a financial bind. I had a lot of financial responsibility as to where I was living. Nobody else was working. I was pretty much the breadwinner. One of my girlfriend's oldest daughter was, working off and on, but, she spent a lot of her money got spent on partying. She had a little one in the house that I was kind of taking care of, kind of like a grandchild. So I kind of was in a financial bind. And, there is a video, and I think it's within like maybe the first 5 or 6 videos I did. I think it's called something when you need help bad enough to ask, where, I had called my father and I had just, Dad, I got half of the money I need, or was probably 2/3 of the money that I needed to get my own apartment. I was like $700 short. I asked my father for the money, but I won't spoil the ending. Go watch the video. So, now we're back in time here. Or forward in time. Where I'm receiving that phone call. And my father, I guess, is trying to reestablish a relationship with me. And, he wanted me to move back down to Florida. He had a job offer for me. He wanted me to, and this was the job offer, wanted me to come down and help him out with some computer-related items. within the maintenance department. And at that time, I mean, I was doing a lot of side work, doing computer repair and virus removal, things like that. I mean, I was kind of really getting into that kind of stuff. So I was kind of what the job offer kind of centered around. And, I mean, I had to really give it a good think. And as a matter of fact, I gave it more than a good think. I ended up coming down for it. Excuse me, junk today. It's my Monday. I'm kind of not feeling this. So, I came down. And, the job was absolutely nothing like he had described. The only computer work it was really inputting inventory of a warehouse that had been neglected for years. And I guess what they wanted me to do was organize this warehouse, computerize their inventory. They were going to purchase a program with a scanner where you can scan parts incoming and outgoing. And it was nothing like working in the IT department or installing computers or anything like I had thought it might be. It was pretty much a warehouse monkey. And, this warehouse was at a resort that, my father was a manager of. It was a timeshare resort, so it was huge. This place was huge. All apartments, houses, and in the warehouse, we warehoused any kind of part or item or anything having to relate with maintenance on apartments and houses. So, I mean, pretty much deconstruct a house, and this is what we had inside the warehouse. We were changing the furniture in some building, then all the furniture for that building would get delivered to the warehouse, and we would inventory it and send it to its proper destinations. If you needed a new sink for your kitchen, a new ring, a new washer, a new screw, anything, we kept it in the warehouse. So when I got there, and my father's assistant is giving me the tour of the warehouse, and this is a guy that we've known. I mean, he's known me since I was 15 years old. And first thing we do, we walk into this warehouse and he's showing me around, and then we get over into the back where nobody can hear us. He says, "Joey, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I just thought." He says, "No, man, you're not thinking." He says, "You don't get along with your father. Why are you here?" I know, Sammy. He kind of shook his head a little bit, and he says, "I hope it works out." And then he continued giving me the tour. He's showing me everything that is in there, and it's in total disarray. Anything that came into the warehouse just kind of got stuck on the shelf. Nobody really knew what was in there or where it was. I mean, there was an old guy that was running the place. He had a mental inventory going, which, I mean, I know sometimes that's people that do that, they know what they're doing, they know where everything is, but this is not how my father wanted it run. And obviously he knew that I was good at things like that, because he did think of me to do it. So, we're further looking. I mean, even down to light bulbs and screws and stuff like that. I mean, they get it delivered, they tear open the box and they put it on the shelf, and that's where it was. So I pretty much inherited a mess. And when I got cracking on it, I was doing what I had to do. I started ordering these plastic bins. So instead of just ripping open a box and putting it on the shelf, I could put all these screws inside this bin, label it what it is, and have a section for screws, electrical, plumbing, so on and so forth. Took me probably about 6 months or so, if that, to really, get everything good. And it worked out great. I mean, I think I designed a pretty good system. They never got me the computer program, so I actually had to use the old Microsoft Excel, and I wrote spreadsheets out where they would automatically do the math, and links in there to where you can click on this screw and it'll take you right to the link of the place that we order. I mean, it was, for really not having anything, I turned it into something. I was quite proud of myself. But within that first 6 months, something happened. Something bad happened to me. It was on my way home from the grocery store, and Mr. Jose Melendez was on his way home from drinking, and he hit me. And it really took the wind out of my sail. I hurt my back pretty good. 10 years later, I still have some pretty bad effects from this. I need a surgery that I cannot afford to have. And even with health insurances and things like that, they do everything that they can to avoid to give you the surgery that you would need. They just want to shove me full of drugs and things like that, and I just won't do it. So my father kind of has a similar injury. He was in Korea and in Vietnam, but when he was in Korea, he got into a bar fight with some other American soldier or something over a prostitute or something like that, and I guess he got his ass kicked and hurt his back. But because it was military, they gave him surgery immediately. And seeing how this was in like the late 60s, early 70s, that kind of surgery was pretty well experimental. Spinal fusions and stuff like that. But he got his surgery immediately, and was given a nice cushy job after that. But he knows the pain that you go through. I was not privy to that understanding. As a matter of fact, when this really, took the wind out of my sail, we're talking like the first 6 months where I couldn't stand for long periods of time. I couldn't lift the things that I couldn't lift before. It really took the wind out of my sail. That's the best way that I can put it. I went from being on the softball team to sitting on the sidelines with my legs going numb. And this was absolutely, positively unacceptable to my father. And as a matter of fact, when my doctor first gave me this diagnosis, and the first time that he had prescribed some, really heavy-duty drugs for it, and he gave me a letter to give to my employer that was saying, please excuse me from certain types of activities while we figure out, the extent of this and what can be done. And I gave it to my father, and my father's exact words were, I'm going to throw this thing in the trash and pretend I didn't see it, because if I see it, I have to fire you. You need to shut your mouth, get in that warehouse, do what you got to do, and if I see you slacking, I'm going to fire you. If I see you tell anybody about this, I will fire you. I needed my job. So I tried my best to play ball. And, you know, I kept up with everything that I had to do. But what my father really couldn't stand is that instead of me, and I'm sorry for the extra noise, I mean, I'm in a Florida torrential downpour right now. Instead of me standing in front of the computer, I brought a chair over and I started sitting in front of the computer when I had to do my computer work. If I had to do anything, fix a chair or something like that, and if I could sit down and do it, I would do it. It took the pressure, and at that time, my leg, I mean, I didn't quite understand what was going on with my legs. But my leg was going numb and was hurting up in the joints, and so the only way I could relieve that pressure was to sit down. Unacceptable. I don't care what you're doing. If you're sitting down while you're doing it, you're being lazy. If I catch you being lazy, I'm going to fire you. These were the first shots fired over the bow. As Rambo said, he drew first blood. So, I'm trying to get through this with a target on my back. Now my father he wants to get rid of me. He wants me out of that place. He does not want somebody there with an injury, and he definitely doesn't want anybody to think that he is showing any kind of special treatment or compassion toward his son. Did not want that. That was unacceptable. I wasn't asking for any special treatment. I was still keeping up with everything I had to keep up with. I was just a little bit slower at some things, but it's not what you do, it's what I see you do. And I, got into a little bit in another video about the whole keeping the shirt tucked in the pants thing. And, the smoking, where everybody was smoking outside. And, if I went and joined people out there for my breaks, it was a problem because people associate me with him. And it was getting ugly. I mean, I survived like 3 years in that place. Three years in that place, where after the first 6 months it started going downhill because I got hit by a drunk driver. So everything that I tried to do, there was a reason why I'm bad at doing that. Let's take the smoking thing. My first attempt at quitting smoking, and successful, was when I was working there. Because I got so tired of hearing about how it's okay for these other guys to take his break and smoke a cigarette, and I can't do it because I'm a reflection, that I just quit smoking. I quit smoking just to get that pressure off of me. I wanted to, even if I wasn't smoking, it was, that's all you do. So I just quit, so I could take that excuse away from him. Still wasn't good enough. We'll talk about the time we had open enrollment in insurance. And technically everybody kind of classed me as the warehouse assistant manager. The warehouse manager was 67 years old. He was ready to retire. So as the insurance came around, and I wanted to get onto the insurance plan, they had two different plans. One for anybody classed as managers, and one for the employees. Guess which one was a hell of a lot better than the other one. So because that was going to be able to cover a lot more medical stuff that I could do, I asked my father, I said, hey, if you actually list me as the warehouse assistant manager, I said, I'll be able to get this better insurance. It's cheaper and it covers more. And oh, I would never do that. You're not ready for something like that. You're not a company man. Well, it doesn't matter if I'm a company man or what you think of me. We're talking about helping your fucking son get better health insurance so that he can have a surgery on his fucking back. I'm sorry, but he didn't see it that way. Okay, no problem. I'm not a company man. Still, keeping my head down, trying to chug along, trying to keep myself busy. So what I did, as these apartments and houses had appliances in them, and these appliances would break, a lot of times the maintenance guy would bring these appliances into the warehouse where they were usually scrapped and disposed of. I started fixing them. I had no idea how to fix an appliance. I got online, I started downloading schematics, and I actually wrote a book detailing every kind of appliance that we had on that property with schematics, pricing on parts, troubleshooting tips, so that if one of the engineers had a broken washer, they could just come down and get that book, turn to the page that details that washer, troubleshoot. Instead of scrapping the whole washer, they could just take the part off and bring it down to the warehouse and we could replace it. And as a matter of fact, I got so good of it, a lot of the times when the appliances were breaking, the engineers were requesting for me to come up to these apartments with them so that I could tear through this appliance. The only thing that I couldn't do was a refrigerator because I didn't have a lot of experience with the refrigeration and stuff, and I probably would have gotten to it, but I never really got that far. I never got the chance. But anyway, I wrote a whole book. Still not good enough. I'm still a piece of shit. So we're probably down to, what is my last 6 months there, and I'm tired. There's nothing I can do. We've had many meetings that involved me and other people with my father, and the end result was always the same, as the person just kind of sitting in on the meeting with their head down and quiet. And then when we got out of the meeting, it was, I just don't understand why he does this. So many people telling me, you should just get out of here, just go somewhere. It's just my father. And my father never seen any of this. As a matter of fact, in one meeting, and I was up to here. And we're having this meeting, and I think he's trying to intimidate me. Because he's standing and talking, he's putting his foot up on this desk with his hands, and I said, what, are you trying to fucking intimidate me? I mean, right in front of everybody, and I started blasting him about how he's treated me, and this just stems from the same way that he treated me like when I was a child, and no wonder why we never got along, and now it's me living in the past and bringing personal items into work. Well, no, this all kind of stems down to one thing: your asshole treatment of me. This is where this all comes from. Nothing has changed. It is all the same, and we're having the same kind of fucking problems right now. He was in his mid-50s. I was in my mid-30s. Still going through this. So, I started to really pay attention to what was going on behind the scenes. And I was told by one of the engineers, one of his kind of partners in crime, that they had a scam that they were running where they were ordering air conditioners, full air conditioning units, inside and out, and installing them in people's houses and splitting the money. So basically they were stealing entire air conditioning units. The only proof I had of it was this guy's word, which he never would have outed anything about this. I had one paper that kind of shows the delivery, but it really would have taken a lot of research and part numbers and everything to be able to match up where it went and how it wasn't paid for. But a little easier opportunity came along. One of my vendors, one of the electric vendors that I had come in, was getting a pool light from my father. A big, fancy, rotating, illuminating, fancy schmancy pool light. I mean, it was like an $800 pool light. And my father was setting it up to have that thing delivered, and he was going to walk it right out the back door. I caught it. And I really didn't have any allies there. There was a couple employees there, a couple other managers that really just absolutely despised my father. So I went to one of those managers with my evidence of what I had, hoping that they would be able to handle it appropriately, but they fucked it all up. They went right to one of my father's buddies, which, it was the guy that they should have gone to with something like that, but, there was an accountant there. The head accountant of this place that hated my father. That's who this stuff should have went to, but I couldn't get near this guy. And this is what this other manager should have done, was gone to him, but he didn't. He went over to my father and one of my father's friends, and actually a higher up manager than what my father was, but was kind of a partner in crime to my father. And that kind of got the rug pulled right out from under me. Next thing I know, they're talking about pressing charges on me because of a corporate espionage, because I have this piece of paper that proves that my father was stealing a pool light, an $800 pool light. They did everything that they could to intimidate me. And I didn't let them intimidate me. I knew it was a crock of shit. I knew that I was going to get fired. And I just kind of rode out as much time as I possibly could. And just, until I could find another job. And, we had that one last faithful meeting. where he sat in front of me telling me that he cannot believe the amount of hatred that I have for him and cannot understand why I hate him so much. Just saying that there, as I'm sitting here, sends a chill down my spine. I'm fighting the urge right now to just but that's how it happened. That's how it went down. It was all about how I hated him. And I listened to everything that he had to say, and I didn't say much at first. And I stood up at the end of the meeting, and I told him, I said, when I leave here, you had better really check the way that you treat your daughter, because that's the only one that you're going to have left. And I told him that if I ever hear him say anything negative about my mother, I don't care how old he is, what kind of state he is in, I will emulsify him. And that's the exact word that I used. And he kind of gave me a smirk, like a yeah right smirk, but just kind of dismissed it. There was other people in the office, or it probably would have came to blows. But at that time, I still didn't even know what narcissism was, narcissistic abuse. And when I talk about the Joska, the conversation in my head, I go back to that moment many, many times, especially knowing what I know now. But I said my piece. I walked out of his office. I was given a 2-week to vacate. He said he was going to do me a favor and lay me off so that I couldn't collect unemployment. You know, for someone that's been in the employment business for so long in Florida, he really doesn't know how it works. And he likes to use intimidation. And many times that we've had our morning engineering meetings, and to see my father standing there in front of 30 different engineers telling them, the unemployment number is this. If you don't want your job, I will find somebody to do it. That's kind of was had the way he ran things. Intimidation, fear. Everybody feared him. He mistook it for respect. I think a lot of the people there mistook it for respect. Although many people could see what was going on, nobody could really stand up and say or do anything about it because they were all in fear of their job, including his assistant, a guy that has been in my life since I was 15 years old and knew how this would play out. Could say absolutely nothing because they all feared for their own jobs. So, I didn't even get through my 2 weeks. He had mistakenly put in the termination after about 8 days. And I left peacefully. I never spoke to the man again. As this video is 40 minutes long, there's so many little things that I didn't say. So many things that I could have repeated. Like in my Take Me Out to the Ball Game or Double Header video where I talk about the necklace that my friend made me that, you know, he just called gay. The fart in the wind comment about my childhood favorite team. Go watch the videos. It'll kind of paint a better picture. But as much as I would like to continue this and tell more, this video is 40 minutes long. I'm at my first building, and I'm kind of on a time crunch when I do this building, so I gotta cut this. So I hope that paints a picture for you. I mean, I guess there's not much of a lesson in this. It's just me kind of telling a story. So I hope it kind of paints the picture a little better of what I went through with my father. When I'm done here and I get a chance to make another video, I got a little mom story to tell you. So I kind of hope you stay tuned for that. So, I appreciate you.